Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. All right, so I've got some stuff to talk about. Not a great deal, but a little bit. And if you have questions in the chat while I'm talking about it, then go right ahead. Oh, I haven't done my music. Do we want music? Yes. One moment. Okay. Not that loud. Okay. That'll do. Right. Oh, hi Gus. How are you doing? You have a question? Well, go ahead. How is the volume, by the way? Volume good? If you have a question, then just type your question in chat. We can start with the question and we'll go on to my other stuff afterwards. Hi, Mike. Oh, there we go. Turn the volume down a bit. Topic of today's lesson is only true in the UK? No. There's not... Let me think about this. Whatever English you learn from whatever region or whatever accent, it's applicable everywhere. So we're not going to say only true in the UK. Oh, but okay, what you're getting at is, am I talking about British English instead of American English? I tend to, yes. I normally, pretty much everything I say about English is from a British perspective, because that's my perspective. And I can sometimes tell you what the Americans will think about that. This is more about culture than English itself, right? Says Gus. Well, that is a really interesting question. I would argue, actually, it's impossible to separate culture and language. Whether you're talking about British English, American English, English in London, English in Manchester, English in Liverpool. How's it going, la? That's English in Liverpool. So it's always tied to culture. If you're talking about French person speaking English and the way a Spanish person speaks English, there's always some reflection of their personality there, right? And yeah, that's that. So you're saying, well, how to say no? You know, do I really need to say no in a certain way? Yeah. Yeah, I think you do. I think just saying no is actually doesn't work in a lot of languages. Maybe some European languages it's okay, but for a lot of other languages, like Japanese, just saying no is avoided, I think. Anyway, I was going to talk about how to say no to an offer in English. Solution: always say yes. Yeah, well, that is kind of what they do in Japan, actually. They say yes, or they say difficult. Very difficult. And that means no. That's my experience anyway. I only lived in Japan for 2 months, so I don't know a lot. So, you can see I've put that on there. Do you want a cup of tea? We've got two responses there. Neither of which is good. Do you want a cup of tea? No. Do you want a cup of tea? Difficult. So I noticed this is a problem for quite a few people, because sometimes when I'm giving a class, I say, does anyone have any questions? Any questions? Right. By the way, that's a terrible question for a teacher to ask. It's not a very good question, but every teacher asks it a lot. It's a bad question because it doesn't normally get a useful response. Anyway, I noticed that some students were having a big problem responding to that question. They're having a big problem responding to the question, do you have any questions? It's like they don't really know, right? So that's why I thought I would talk about this. So we'll start with a cup of tea, I think. And I've I've put a few. Oh, that's very interesting, Gus. You say in my culture, no is a forbidden word almost. Yeah, which culture's that, by the way? Because that does sound very much like my experience of Japan. I've put some phrases on the board there, which I think would be good phrases to use to respond to "Do you want a cup of tea?" So you can try to answer in chat what you think is what you think the hidden words are. Gus culture, okay. Sure thing. I always try to be polite by saying yes. You can be polite by saying no. And that's what I'm trying to show you. There are ways of being polite and saying no. So if you look there at the hidden words. Yep, you've got number one, not right. So that would be, do you want a cup of tea? Not right now, thanks. Not right now, thanks. That's polite. Gus, number 2, says, I'm good for the moment, thanks. That's right. Yep. Do you want a cup of tea? I'm good for the moment, thanks. Number 3. No, I'm good for now. Number 3 is no, I'm good for now. Do you want a cup of tea? No, I'm good for now. I'm good for now. Interesting that, isn't it? I'm good. I'm good for now. I'm good. It's actually quite American. It's funny you should say, Gus, about English, British culture or whatever. It's quite American, actually, to say I'm good for now. And Australians say that as well. But we find that with globalization now, a lot of American and Australian things are coming into British language. Classic example being the word awesome. Awesome is a word that was used by American surfers. In the past, awesome used to mean very potent, but now awesome means great, and that actually came from American surfers. No, I think I'm okay. Cheers. No, I think I'm okay. Cheers. So that's quite a simple question, isn't it? Do you want a cup of tea? And then we've got a few simple responses to that. Let's have a look at some questions which might be a bit more difficult to answer. which is that one I kind of said before. Do you have any questions? Okay. How about I'm fine? Says Mai. How about I'm fine? Do you want a cup of tea? I'm fine. I'm fine, thanks. I'm fine, thanks. Yeah, it's like number 2, isn't it? I'm fine, thanks. It's good. I would say I'm fine, thanks. I'm fine, thanks. Just has a better rhythm. Or I'm fine for now. You see how these sentences, these phrases all have the same rhythm, and it just sounds better than just being like no, or yeah, just no doesn't seem to work. It's like we always seem to want to have an extra clause, you know, not just one clause but 2 together. No, I'm good for now. No, I think I'm okay. Cheers. That's 3. I'm fine, thanks. All right, so then we had any questions, okay? So the answers to this one are a bit different. When I thought about these, so I've come up with some different things here. Do you have any questions? And specifically, I was thinking about if I'm explaining something or giving a class, and then I say, anyone have any questions? Do you have any questions? And these are some responses to that. So Gus is already in with number 1. He says, not right now, thanks. Which I think is we also had for tea, didn't we? That's close for number 2, Gus, but not quite right. Excuse me. Yeah, you've got it. So number 2 is... No, I think that's all pretty clear. Notice how we say pretty clear. Yeah. So I'm not saying... No, I think that's perfectly clear. And this goes to what you were talking about, Gus, when you said... You know, you said like, is this connected to culture a bit? And that, where we're saying that's pretty clear, I think that is very culturally British to say that. We don't like absolutes in Britain, British culture. We don't like to say, that is absolutely clear. You know, we like to say, yeah, it's not too bad. Like, how are you? I'm not too bad. I'm pretty good. Pretty good. Not really good, right? Pretty good, right? This was it's a bit of a anecdote I have, bit of a story about when I was training as a Cambridge English examiner about 6 years ago, and I was training with an American guy who's training with me. He's kind of my partner. Because with the Cambridge English, you have 2 examiners, right? You have 2 examiners. You have the interlocutor who speaks, and you have the assessor who listens and marks in detail. And the course trainer asked us. He said, "How do you feel about, you know, learning about the Cambridge English exams and becoming an examiner?" And I said, well, first he asked Brad, who was the guy I was working with, and Brad said, "I'm excited. I'm really excited to start. I'm trying to do an American accent here. I'm really excited to start. I'm really excited." And then he asked me, and I said, "I'm interested." Everyone started laughing, and Brad said that's the classic American English, British English difference. Americans are excited, and British people are interested. I think I even said, I'm quite interested. Yeah. All right, so there's the other answers there. Seems okay for the moment. That's all good, thanks. No, I think that's pretty clear. All right now, thanks. All right. Examinees never know. Yep. Yeah, I've been an examiner for 2 different oral examinations. There was Cambridge English. By the way, I'm not an examiner anymore, or not an active examiner right now. Actually, when you are an active examiner, you're not allowed to talk about it. You can get suspended as an examiner if you go around telling people that you're an examiner. Well, like with Cambridge English, you can anyway. But anyway, I'm not anymore. I'm off the books. But I did it for that, and I did it also for something called Cert ACLES, which was a European collaboration. It's pretty much the same as Cambridge English, but they used authentic materials that were not edited. And yeah, exactly, Gus. Never talk about Fight Club, right? The only rule about being a Cambridge English examiner is don't talk about being a Cambridge English examiner. So with the Cert ACLES, that was based on authentic materials. And really, the setup was very, very similar. And IELTS is very, very similar as well. The only difference with IELTS, or the main difference with IELTS, is there's just one examiner and the exam is recorded. Cambridge English do not record their exams. So there is no appeals process for... well, there is an appeals process, but you can't just appeal and say, I think they got my grade wrong, please remark it, with Cambridge English oral exams. They very much believe that it should be live. I don't know if that will change at some point, but IELTS record them, and the examiner, the lone examiner, actually listens back to the recording after the candidate has left the room. So I was thinking now you could tell me a question, you could put a question in chat that you find it difficult to say no to, right? So if you think of a question and you think, I don't know how to say no to this question, like I feel uncomfortable saying no to this question in English, and then we can look at possible responses to that. Especially relevant if it's an offer, because that's what these ones are, but anything is fine. You just, would you like $1 million? Isn't it? Is that difficult to say no to that? You could always say, what's the catch? What's the catch? Which means, what do I have to do? Why are you giving me $1 million? You don't get nothing for free, right? Unless it's the genie in the magic lamp asking you, would you like $1 million? Yeah. Okay, Mr. Genie. Let's see if I can do this. I want to duplicate that page. Ah, there we go. Bingo. This is my own music in the background. I play music for fun. I'm not a professional museum. The catch is that the money is cursed. That reminds me of a very famous Simpsons episode. I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about. I think it was a Halloween special where Homer bought a lucky monkey foot and the foot was cursed. So if you don't have any examples of questions that are difficult to say no to, then I can just open it up then to just any questions about English. If you got any questions about English, we can talk about anything, whatever you want. Can't think of a question, Rich. Yeah, I know. That's what happens when I put you on the spot. Let's do some vocabulary expansion. How about that? How about you tell me of a time or a situation or a phrase that you find it difficult, or you find yourself using the same language over and over again, you know? When do you find it difficult? When do you find that you just keep saying the same thing, right? Like, in order to learn English better, I need to do this, that, and the other. Are there any specific situations where you find it difficult to talk, to use extensive vocabulary, where you find yourself repeating yourself? Introducing yourself, That's funny you should say that, because that was actually my other idea for a class that I was working on, and I didn't get very far with it. What's this, Gus? Rich, this isn't working. Just tell us whatever and we'll help you. I don't know what you mean. I'm going to talk about introducing yourself, though, for my... So, different ways of introducing yourself. Let me just think of my standard way. The thing is, with introducing yourself, as with anything, I suppose you have to think about the situation, right? It's going to be very difficult if you're talking, is it casual? Okay. Is it business? Right? Or is it like formal, but not business, formal social? So these kind of different scenarios. So... All right, let's have a think about that. So how do I introduce myself when it's casually? The most casual way in English is people just say the name. They're just like, hey, buddy. Rich. Jack. Good to meet you. That's basically how it goes. The two main ways are I'm, and then, I'm Jenny or whatever, right? Hi, I'm Jenny. Hi, Jenny. And then people often just say their name, Mike. Hi, Jenny. Mike. A pleasure. Just a pleasure as well. We can say a pleasure or good to meet you. So this is the kind of casual colloquial way. Yeah. You are a pro when it comes to typing, respect. I'm a techie, Gus. I'm a computer. I basically have my hands plugged into the computer, more or less. I've always liked playing around with PCs as my your English is good. You're making puns, which is word plays. Your English is good, Gus. Are you the guy? There was a guy who commented on one of my videos, and he said that he's been watching the channel for like 10 years, and when he was a beginner, he watched the channel and it really helped him. That's not you, is it? I don't know who it was, but it was very interesting, and definitely someone who I would like to hear more from. I'd be very interested to hear the full story for that. I mean, it's quite an endorsement, really. Anyway, I'm Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Mike, a pleasure. So there's the casual one. If we go to business, let me think about this a minute. It's been a long time since I've worked in a formal business situation. Even that Cambridge Examiner stuff was... Yeah, English teachers are always quite informal, We don't sort of go around, hello, good afternoon. That's how we present the exam, right? But then when we talk in the teacher's office, it's rather a different conversation. Would I say hello in business? You see, in business, you often get introduced, don't you? It's like someone else will say, John, this is Peter, our new IT director, and then they'll say, a pleasure to meet you, Peter. So we're extending a pleasure, and we're saying a pleasure to meet you when we when we go into the business situation. A pleasure to meet you. I think a pleasure to meet you has become more common than nice to meet you, which is like the one you see in all the books, isn't it? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Right, but it's sort of become like a pleasure now, or good to meet you. Yeah. How would you say your name though? Would you say I'm John? Maybe the Americans would. John. Again, yeah, it's it's pretty much the same even in business. I'm trying to think how if it was really formal business meeting. My name's yeah. See, the thing is about my names is it can sound a bit childish, you know. My name is, you know. It just sounds a bit like you're a child, a school child maybe. Yeah, I think I'm is the preferred way to go about this now. You just have to be careful if your name sounds like an adjective like mine, because you know, I say this, I'm rich, and honestly, people have honestly, seriously mistaken the fact that I'm introducing myself, and they think that I'm talking about the money I have. It doesn't happen very often, but it happened. Really, I think that's more their mistake than mine, or maybe it was the way I said it. You normally don't need to ask someone's name. You normally don't need to ask someone's name. I'm rich. I'm rich in my heart, Gus. I'm rich with spiritual and emotional wealth. Physical wealth, not really. It's not really my thing, to be honest. I think as long as you're comfortable, you don't need a lot of financial wealth. I'm Rich. Pleasure to meet you. So yeah, you won't often say things like, what's your name? You know, that's kind of it's a strange question. It never really comes up. What you do is you introduce yourself. Now, something that often happens is you kind of miss that initial chance to introduce yourself. And then you find yourself in a situation where you're with someone and you don't know their name. And then what do you do? Okay. Well, this is the phrase. Sorry, I didn't quite catch your name. I'm Rich. And hold your hand out to shake their hand. Right? So, Richie Rich, like the film. So, sorry, I didn't quite catch your name. I'm Rich. That's if you find yourself in that situation where you missed the initial opportunity to introduce yourself. So then this is effectively how you're going to correct that. If you forget someone's name, sorry, what was your name again? Right. Careful with that. You can get away with it if you do it quick, right? You know, you just miss it. You just miss. Maybe I should put these over kind of here-ish. In a business situation, if you forget someone's name, ask someone else. But anyway, if you find yourself in that situation where you forget someone's name, sorry, what was your name again? You can get away with that if it happens within the first 10 minutes, right? If it's like 3 days later, then maybe you should just ask someone else and avoid this. But I've had this situation where I've quite a few times actually, where because I kind of switch off when I'm listening to like the first 5 minutes of the conversation. I know that sounds bad thing to say, but it's like when you're in those first 5 minutes of conversation, they're quite intense, aren't they? Meeting a new person. It's quite an intense experience comparatively. You know, it's like so sometimes you don't always focus on certain things, and especially if you're introduced to like 7 people straight at the time. I'm Rob, I'm Bill, I'm Mike, I'm Chris, I'm okay. Yeah, then 5 minutes later, you're talking to one of them alone and you say, sorry, what was your name again? And I've been in that situation a few times, and they actually say the same thing to me. So I say, sorry, what was your name again? I'm Rich. And they say, no. I say, sorry, what was your name again? And they say, oh, it's John. Sorry, what was your name? And we both do it. And that's what happens when you try to introduce 6 people to each other at once. Pro tip. Ask someone else. Yeah, that's right. It is a pro tip. All right. What about formal social? I guess that's pretty much covered by the business as well, isn't it? I wonder how we could be more formal about this. How would you introduce yourself to the Queen? I don't think you would you? You wouldn't say your name to the Queen. You would just sort of kneel and say, Your Majesty or something. Right. Interesting. So I hope that kind of helps, Mai. Do you have any other questions about that? Like what happens next? All right, very good. So, Gus, what do you do to improve your English these days? Are you happy with your English these days? What do you think is your weak point? Yep, go on. Any questions? Just go right ahead. You go back and forth. I'm going to take a bit of inhaler because I'm a bit wheezy. Okay. So yeah, go on. Just like having a good time with English, perfect. It's the best way to learn. That's the best way to learn any language, certainly musical instruments, and probably some other things as well. But definitely languages and instruments. They're very much like that. I'm a little lost now, Gus. Do you have a question? I understand quite a lot. Yeah. Never speak, tend to simplify everything. Yeah. Okay. You tend to simplify everything. How often do you speak? How often do you speak in English? Do you keep notes? Like vocabulary notes? How can I apply this information in real life situations? Yeah. Also, do you learn individual words or do you learn phrases? Busted. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, well, Notepad helps. But this is the thing. Don't make a note of everything. Only take a note of the things that the words you want to start using. Just take a note of the vocabulary you want to start using, right? So if there's vocabulary you want to start using, then you write that down. And there's lots of things you can do to make that more complex, but just writing it down is helpful. That's sort of step one, right? So yeah, vocabulary notes. You don't have to look at them very often. It's just a book. It's almost like you think of it like a magic book. This is a magic book. I can write down a maximum of 5 phrases a day. Phrases. Not individual words. If you can. Obviously, sometimes you need to write an individual word, like extraordinarily, right? Probably that would be an individual word, or steering wheel, right, for a car. But yeah, this is a magic book full of mushrooms. Interesting. Magic. So yeah, it's a magic book. It's a magic book, and you think whatever I write in this book will magically become something I'll start using. You just treat it like that. But you can only write a maximum of 5 per day. Okay? And here's the other thing as well. You must practice out loud the phrase with natural stress. Okay? So let's say you said, I always simplify everything, right? And everybody does because it's easier in another language. This is good. That's easier than saying, oh, I quite like this, right? But that's how you should practice that phrase, right? So there's a good way of doing this, an excellent website called Youglish. And the website Youglish allows you to search for phrases in English. And it searches YouTube, and you can play the phrase. And then you can copy the native intonation and stress, right? If you're not confident doing that yourself. But you must copy the stress and the intonation. Right? So instead of saying, I'm good, you say, yeah, I'm not too bad. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Yeah, not too bad. That's it, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not too bad. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Right, there's your stress, right? Yeah, I'm not too bad. And you practice it like that at home. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Right, and then the next time someone asks you it, you use your new tool that you've practiced. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Right, the phrase, right? It's a phrase, one piece, one group. So you're not trying to make a puzzle with individual words. You have your phrase. Phrases are the way to go for boosting your speaking like that. Boosting the complexity of your speaking. Grammar can be helpful too. It does work, you know. But phrases are just... I feel like phrasal vocabulary should come before grammar. First get to grips with the phrases and then worry about grammar. You know, so if I have a phrase like... if only it wasn't raining today. Right? That's my phrase. If only it wasn't raining today. Which is true, by the way. It is raining. If only it wasn't raining today. Okay? And that I put that phrase in my vocabulary book. Then I get the word stress up. If only wasn't raining today. There's the stress. If only it wasn't raining today. Right? And then you practice it a bit. Maybe you use it. Like, oh, I would like to go to the beach. If only it wasn't raining today. Right? Comes out in conversation in English and you're like, oh, yes, very good. And then later you learn the grammar, right? Oh, I've been using this if only it wasn't raining today phrase quite a bit. Maybe I should have a look at the grammar of that. Maybe I can use it for other things. And then you realize that the structure is if only plus past, right? And this is to express a wish in the present. Does that make sense? So vocabulary, phrasal vocabulary comes first, and then we can use the grammar afterwards to expand on it. But first, get it in your vocabulary. Start using the phrase, right? You make it something that you say. This is something I say. I say, if only I had £1 million, right? And then later you expand on that with the grammar. Right. That helped a lot. Yeah. Great. Good stuff. That's what we want. So I think I'm probably going to wrap up unless there's any more questions about English on your mind. Hello, Luciana Correa. Do you do that in Portuguese? Correa. How are you? Do you have any questions about English? We just talked about how to improve the complexity of your spoken language. The devil literally was in the details, Rich. And you put the devil literally, not really, was in the details, says Gus. It's funny, but when we say literally in those expressions, they actually don't normally mean literally. So when we say the devil was literally in the details, it's actually fine to say that, even though it's actually impossible for the devil to literally be in the details, because literally, funnily enough, literally does not only mean in a literal way. It also means, what does it mean? It's like emphasizing something of a surprising nature. And I know that makes no sense. Why does the word literally not only mean literally? That's how languages work. And I tell you what, people have arguments about this all the time. They're always like, how can you say literally like that? It's like, because that's how people use it. And that's what language is, you know. We do need to be prescriptive a little about some things. I mean, I'm an English teacher, so of course, you know, I'm prescribing something here now. If I say if only plus past, that is a prescription. But more than anything, we should be descriptive. We should describe how the language is being used by people. That's the job of a dictionary. A dictionary should not be telling people how to use language. It should describe how people are using language. And you get some very strange things happening recently, don't you? Where like words from Twitter make it into the dictionary. For example, we had the amazing, what was it called? Humble brag became a word in the dictionary. And this was a hashtag on Twitter, a humble brag. Which is, it's like a modest way of talking about how great you are yourself. It's kind of a joke. And it only existed for about a year, that hashtag, and then it completely disappeared off the internet. But it made it into the dictionary. I'm not sure if I agree with it. Thank you, Gus. It's very nice. So yeah, you know, language is a complex thing, isn't it? And it goes on for a long time. And I think Gus, your approach of, you know, when I'm interested in it, it's kind of like something I toy around with. I think that's a really good approach to have with English. Maybe you just need a bit more direction. Maybe get yourself a notebook and do these things that I've mentioned here. For me, I talk a lot about the analogy between learning a language and learning a musical instrument, because I've done both. I speak Spanish fluently, or I did. I don't really practice a lot at the moment. And I've been playing guitar for 20 years, and I play piano and keyboard, as you can hear in the music, right? That's me playing the instruments. And I very much think there are lots of similarities between learning a language and learning an instrument. For example, you have to train your ear. So when you learn a musical instrument, you have to train your ear to be able to hear the different notes, so you can tune the instrument, and also so you can start to know how things are going to sound before you play them. Right? And that process is very, very similar to how you train your ear with a language, when you have to learn sounds that don't exist in your native tongue, and you realize that a sound in your native tongue is split into two sounds in English, or the other way. Sometimes you have two sounds in your native tongue, and in English there's just one, and then you have to decide which one is it more like, and what do I do with my mouth. The mouth is a different question. That's when we get to muscle memory. And that's, again, the same, isn't it, as an instrument. There's lots of muscle memory, lots of muscle-based practice going on when you learn to play an instrument. Just like with learning a language, when you practice pronunciation, you're doing new things with your mouth that you haven't done before, and there's that physical practice. Also, you have the performance, right? So when we speak, we can think of speaking as a performance. And when we play our guitar in front of people, that is also a performance. So again, there's a big similarity there between languages and learning an instrument. This is the kind of thing that we talk about on ELT Under the Covers, which is the podcast that I do with Neil, who's another English teacher. So if you're interested in that kind of linguistic discussion, we talk about that on the ELT Under the Covers. You can find us easily on YouTube. It's just podcast that's actually designed for other teachers to listen to, but we seem to have attracted more just random people all over the internet, actually. But we'll see how it goes. Yeah, ELT Under the Covers. It's English Language Teachers Under the Covers, or English Language Teaching Under the Covers. And we started that in August. So Mai says, nowadays, people say simple and short ways in writing or speaking are better. Simple and short ways in writing or speaking are better. How do you observe it? I think, well, first of all, I don't really like the word better there, because I think it needs more context. Like, for what purpose, right? You remember recently we did that class on giving instructions and written instructions. So with written instructions, yeah, simple. Keep it simple. Simple but specific. So as specific as it needs to be, but as simple as possible. Those are the best written instructions. If you're speaking, yeah, again, simple, clear. This is good for instructions, right? But also as specific as they need to be. You can't miss out any important details. However, what if I'm giving a speech? What kind of speech? A political speech? Or maybe I'm having a debate? Or maybe I'm presenting a product I want to sell? There's different types of speech, aren't there? And we have to think then, well, do we want to use simple language in our speech? Also, who are the audience? Are the audience from China and India and they have pre-intermediate English? Or are the audience from Germany and Sweden and the United States and they have very good English? Because, yeah, it's true, Mai, that that point I just made about specific as it needs to be, but there's we also need to consider how people will perceive you. This is a big part of languages, right? So languages come with and elements of language come with stigma and prestige. So if I stand on stage and I say, "Hey up, guys! Do you want to go to the pub and have a few bevies?" right? That's my Liverpool accent. I was originally from a town near to Liverpool, so actually I had quite a strong Scouse accent in the past, right? So that accent comes with a stigma. Normally a stigma. It can actually come with a positive stigma sometimes. Like working class people quite like other working class people. So, if I start speaking like that to a very working class audience, an audience of warehouse men and plumbers and stuff, then, they might kind of identify with it. They might think, oh yeah, he's, this guy's one of us kind of thing, right? But if I go to the Houses of Parliament and I speak like that, then, they might be like, who is this? They obviously don't know what they're talking about, right? So it's a prickly one. And that's why I say it's not just about keeping it simple, right? Maybe I want to get up on stage and say, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we shall examine in thorough detail the juxtaposition of astrobiology and subparticle physics. Right? Obviously, I'm not using simple vocabulary there. Maybe I'm, and it carries with it something, doesn't it? It carries with it some idea that, oh, this guy must know a bit what he's talking about, which doesn't always translate, but it does a lot of the time. If you tend to find if someone is a very good orator, they do actually tend to be quite an effective presenter as well. Is that true? I'm trying to think of an example of, I guess, people who are really good orators that maybe they're better at speaking than they actually are at doing stuff. Maybe they're the people who become politicians. I'm also kind of wondering, I wonder who, when you say people say simple and short ways in writing and speaking are better, I wonder who you're talking about. I think, it very much just depends on context. I can totally imagine someone who does a lot of international business saying that, because they probably deal with lots of people with lower levels of English, right? But then when you come to meet people who have a higher level of English, then maybe you don't want to use simple language. This is good, put that there, whatever, right? One of the interesting things about Mr. Donald Trump is that he was known for using very simple words. So he would say, this is very, very good, or this is very, very bad, right? And that appealed a lot to his voting base, because his voting base was the working class of America. So, they found that down to earth, as opposed to, other politicians who can be quite wordy. English teachers in Japan say that, do they? Simple is better. Yeah, I think I would want to know the context, because I think you could make a good point that simple is better, but I want to know the situation when, right? Because there are definitely situations where simple is not better. I think what I would say is clarity is important. And clarity sometimes means simplicity, but it can also mean accuracy. And you can also be clear and complex. It is possible. So here we go. Sunday sharing. Sunday sharing with Professor Rich. Yes, the better term is clarity. Yeah, clarity is good. Yeah, exactly, Mai. That is why we learn new vocabulary. And it makes you sound sophisticated. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it does. It does make you sound sophisticated. I mean, there's a reason why the debate topic for Cambridge Advanced will be something like, what do you think are the most important environmental problems that we need to tackle? And you have a debate about that. And the topic for PET, which is Preliminary English Test. This is A2, pre-intermediate. The topic of discussion there will be something like, you're going on a family holiday. Where's the best place to go? Shall we go to the park? Shall we go to the beach? Right. So there's a reason for that, and that's because the students who go into the PET, the preliminary English test, do not have the lexical resources. Lexical resources is a fancy word for vocabulary. They do not have the lexical resources to cope with the kind of debate subject that you have in Cambridge Advanced. So you don't really have an option to keep it simple. If you want to talk about particle physics, you have to use some of the language related to particle physics. If you want to have a debate about about who owns language, is it owned by the natives, or is it owned by the non-natives, or is it owned by the speakers, or does no one own it, or does everyone own their own version of it? Right? If you want to talk about something like that, a very esoteric and philosophical topic, then you would need to use some sophisticated lexis, fancy words. Just going to change the music to my other stuff. So, has that raised any other interesting questions? Why did you become an English teacher? Oh, I see. All right. So, before I became an English teacher, I worked in computers. I'd worked in computers for 3 years. I was trained in philosophy at university. Philosophy was my big subject. And what happened actually is that we got the worst winter on record in England, or in 100 years, I think it was. The worst winter in 100 years. It was iced roads, iced, snow everywhere, ice everywhere, and I was driving my car, freezing, 7 a.m. I hated getting up in the morning. Now I like it. I've solved that problem. But back then I hated getting up in the morning, and I got up and it was freezing cold, and I was in my Fiesta little car, right, sliding all over the place on the road, right? And then I got to a bit and my car just slid down the side of the road, hit the curb, right? The curb is the pavement. The side where people, the sidewalk, as the Americans say, it's the pavement. And I hit the curb, boom. And sorry, I'm clipping my mic. I hit the curb and I couldn't get my car back on the road. When I tried, it just had no grip. And so I had to get out in my suit and trench coat. I had a suit and I had one of those big long Matrix coats, but it wasn't leather like in the Matrix. It was, what do you call it? Cashmere? I don't know, like a fancy business coat, right? and I had to walk to work. And it was quite a short walk, actually. It was about 15 or 20 minutes. But I used to live in a place called Sheffield in Yorkshire. And it's known for the hills. It's very hilly. Very, very hilly. It's a terrible place to have a bike. You can't ride a bike in Sheffield. It's too hilly. So I had to walk down these hills to work in my suit and my shiny shoes. I had some black shiny shoes. And it was icy and cold and snowing. And I fell over, I don't know, maybe 6 times, 7 times. And I had to walk so slow. And I knew that after work, I would have to walk back and get my car. Because if I just get a taxi home, then my car's stuck there. And then maybe my car would start to freeze up and stuff because I need to take care of it when it's that cold. So I went to work. Eventually I got to work, not very happy. And when I got to work, this is the thing about where I used to work. It was an old barracks. Very, very nice building, right? But what's a barracks? A barracks is an old army building. And this building had bars on the windows. It's a lovely building. It looks lovely. But it had bars on the windows. Bars, iron bars on the windows. So I was sat at my computer desk. Okay, cold, a bit wet, not very happy, looking out the bars of the window. And then, that night, I went to a different kind of bar, a pub, to meet my friend Neil. And I said to Neil, you know what, Neil? I think I want to live in another country for a bit. And he said, you know what, Rich? Me too. And then we said, okay, let's go. In 6 months. 6 months from today, we go. Okay? So we aim for the summer, right? After that horrible winter, we said, right, when it gets to the summer, we're gonna go. And what happened then? Well, we said we're gonna have weekly meetings every week. We're going to have a weekly meeting to discuss where we're gonna go and things like that. So our first meeting was literally what countries are possible. And we decided Bulgaria because my stepmother has an apartment there. Greece, because Greece is awesome. It's a lovely place, right? Italy, Spain, Portugal, and I think Canada was on the list. Funnily enough. Anyway, we decided on Spain for a number of reasons. We decided that the language was a very useful language to learn. It was quite local, and we kind of had this fun plan that we wanted to drive there. So we were going to drive from Sheffield through down to the coast, go over to Belgium, drive through Belgium, through Germany, through France, through Switzerland, back into France, and then down to Spain. And we did that. That's what we did. So in 6 months, I started studying language like crazy. I was doing a minimum of 1 hour a day every day, and I did that for 6 months. And I would say that got me started. That started my Spanish. Okay, I could make sentences from that. Before that, I didn't know any Spanish. I didn't know a word. Okay, I thought that paella was paella, not paella, and I thought that they said I thought hola or hola, that one. I thought that was spelled OLA, hola, and I didn't say hola. I said hola. like an English person. Hola, quiero eso, por favor, right? That's what I thought Spanish was. But 6 months, and I could speak not too bad, and I think my accent got a bit better. But I wasn't a language teacher back then, so I didn't know a lot about how to, get the mouth sounds and how to sound more like como soy español. What do they say? De verdad. Soy español de verdad. Is that what they say? Realmente? I don't know. Sorry, my Spanish has got a bit rusty now, unfortunately. It was very good at one point. Anyway, so I was studying every day, an hour a day for 6 months, and then we got to Spain, and I realised my Spanish was still terrible, but I had a start. And basically, when we were in Spain, we got there 2008, when something called the financial crisis was happening. You might remember the 2008 financial crisis, and you know which countries in Europe were worst hit by the 2008 financial crisis? That's right, it was Greece, Italy, Spain and Portugal. So we got to Spain right in the middle of a horrible economic depression, a terrible recession, with families being supported by one worker, mum, dad, granddad, grandmum, all the kids living in one house because no one had any money or no one had any jobs. And my plan going there was actually to become a web designer. I was going to start making websites and selling websites. And once I got there and really started to understand the situation, I realized that's definitely not going to happen, because there was no market for it. And we looked around, and what the industry was that was doing really well was language teaching, because everyone wanted a job, and to get a job you need to speak English. In Spain, that was the situation. If you want to be a toilet cleaner or a dustbin man, for some reason you need to speak some level of English. If you want to be like a international business person or an architect, you definitely need to speak English. And if you want to leave the country and go to another country to get a job, which a lot of young Spanish people did, they really wanted that in 2008, then you have to speak pretty good English. So there was lots of opportunities, and excuse me. And I didn't know really a lot about how that would be. I had some skills that were relevant because I had been training people in IT and stuff like that. And I had become very fascinated by learning Spanish. I become very interested in languages. So then when I started teaching, I was a terrible teacher at first. I didn't have you've got to have some training, right? I didn't really have any training, but I did have a good attitude. I had the attitude that I'm going to get really good at this, right? Because it was actually really enjoyable. Right from the word go, it was enjoyable. And I was getting paid a horribly low amount of money because I was working at this corner shop sort of academy that just paid people rubbish and didn't charge very much for the courses either. And it was all based on appearances. Oh, look, we've got our English-looking guy as the teacher, and, the glass-fronted classrooms and interactive whiteboards and stuff. But it was all just based on appearances. But anyway, they left me alone most of the time, so it allowed me to develop my teaching myself. And that more than anything, I would say that solidified my interest. I started to become fascinated by it because I started to realize that this was a job where there was no real ceiling on how good you can be. You can always be a different or a better teacher. There's always ways of doing things differently. Not like computers, With computers, it's like, this is how you fix this problem, right? But with teaching, it's like, well, there's so many different approaches and so many different ways of dealing with something, and so many different things you can do in the class, and also all the topics can be so interesting, you know. And as I started to learn that and get more and more interested, I was like, right, I have to get qualified. So then I did something called a CELTA, which is like the basic certificate to be a language teacher in the worldwide. And then a few years later, I did something called the Trinity Diploma, which is a much more advanced certificate, which is supposedly qualifies you to be... oh, hang on. Let's skip that one. Supposedly qualifies you to be a teacher trainer or academic manager or whatever. Which, yeah, I mean, it does train you to do that. But I was so fascinated on that course because we started to get into different elements of teaching. It's like when you do the certificate, the CELTA, it's like what they say to you is, this is how to be a language teacher. Do it like this, right? So they talk about things like they say, no, keep the TTT low. What's TTT? Teacher talk time. So keep the TTT low, and we want the STT, the student talk time, high. So we want the students talking, we want the teacher to shut up, right? That's how you must do it in the CELTA, they say. Do it like that. But when you get to the diploma, suddenly there's no more do it like that. Instead, it's like, there's lots of different ways to do it. And they all have different advantages and pros and cons and all this kind of stuff. So I became fascinated in that, and I started to experiment with some of the other methods. So not just communicative language teaching, but how about the silent way, which is not completely silent, by the way, the silent way. How about the silent way? How about task-based learning? How about the lexical approach? You know, all of these other things. What about a 100% phonemic class where you're just getting into phonemics and really digging into the phonemic chart and how to say things and, you know, all these different kinds of things. TPR, total physical response, getting people out their seats and doing things as well. All these different pedagogical methods, which, you know, fascinated me, and I found were at least as effective, if not more effective, in some circumstances than communicative language teaching. And then I came across a chap called Jamie Keddy, and I learnt about something called dialogic storytelling, where the idea of TTT, teacher talk time, just gets thrown out the window. Forget it. We're not interested in teacher talk time anymore. We're interested in teacher talk quality, right? What is the quality of that teacher talk? Is it engaging? Are the students listening? How are they interacting with it, right? And that's dialogic storytelling. And dialogic storytelling is kind of like how I just told all this story now. If I put some questions in there while I told it, like I kind of stopped and I said, "What do you think happened next?" Right? Then that would make it dialogic. So it's like I'm telling the story, but then I'll say, "Oh, what do you think happened next?" Right? Yeah. What do you think happened next? We're pretty close to the present. I did my diploma in 2016. So that's 5 years ago. Lots of tools in your bag, yeah, that's right. That is, I think that's one of the things that makes teaching so interesting. The birth of Professor Rich. Professor Rich actually was born a long time ago. 2009, I started this channel. 2009. That's 12 years? Yeah, 12 years ago. So Professor Rich started when I started teaching. Yeah, take a look. Have a look at the channel. Look at the videos. Sort by oldest, and it's either 2009 or maybe 2010. Yep. And the first video that I uploaded was the meanings of get, and I made that video before my teaching certificate. I had not taken a teaching certificate at that point. So you can see, even without the teaching certificate, I was very interested in teaching, and I had my own ways of teaching, and the different meanings of get, that was entirely mine. It was just, I didn't have any reference. I didn't read any, academic papers on how to be a teacher or anything. It was just totally my own thing. I don't really recommend that, by the way. I think anyone who does want to become a language teacher, especially English teacher should do the CELTA immediately. And if I could go back, I would do that. I would do the CELTA immediately. Although there is some risk that it stifles your teaching a little. The way to correct that is to do the diploma. When you do the diploma, it unstifles your teaching. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you what actually happened next. What actually happened next was a bad relationship, a very bad relationship. I was in Japan for a couple of months. Then I went to Vietnam for 2 years. And then I come back to the UK. And then that very bad relationship ended. So for a while, I was in this kind of very bad relationship, and it ended. Thankfully, thank God for that. And then the pandemic happened. And because of that, I kind of got stuck in the UK. Or not stuck, because I quite like it, actually. But I do miss living abroad as well. So we'll have to see what the future holds. Yeah, thanks, Mai. 12 years. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? What's it going to be like when I've been teaching for 30 years? I don't know. Will I still be a full-on teacher? Maybe I'll be programming robot teachers. I don't know. Will I still be alive? Who knows? Life can hold all kinds of interesting surprises, can't it? Right. Unless anyone has a real gripping inquiry, then I think I'm going to finish up. And I'm going to go and relax, play some video games, and prepare for tomorrow, which is a full work day for me. Cheers, Gus. Thank you. Yes, let's. Yeah. All right. Great. Good to have you guys here. Nice to see Gus. Nice to see you as well, because I don't think I've seen you on any of the other on the other streams that I've done. So nice to have you here. Funnily enough, I tend to get one or two like chatty people who show up, but the same people I don't think anyone's ever come to more than one. Yeah, actually no, there's one person who came to a couple, yeah, but it's like a different person every time. Yeah. All right. Yeah, good to see you. This video will stay on the channel afterwards, and I'll leave the chat up there as well in case, just to give it context. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend, and catch you later.